Vass, for future reference, you give me a 20-second warning so I can put the camera on.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks,
You
Jim.
should just let it run.
Thanks.
Okay, sorry. Please silence your cell phones if you have them with you. Okay, we'll continue with past meeting minutes. Looking for a motion to approve them.
That's announced.
I didn't know.
I'm sorry, we announced that he's formally going forward all the meetings are recorded.
Okay.
Yeah, we did that
Yeah.
last time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't have to, okay.
Yeah.
So,
That's all right.
No, that's okay.
I'd make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Any comments or questions?
Seems like there's a lot of pages up in here, that's the five full pages.
We're working on it.
Okay. You'll be down to 2 or 3 short.
Video at 11. Any other comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Police Department, Chief.
I will give my formal report at the next meeting, but I do have a few things. The new patrol car is in service, the new design on the side, it's out there if anybody wants to take a look at it. It looks sharp.
I like it.
I got the numbers for the breakdown on numbers of students from each municipality. So I'll be working on getting numbers to each municipality in reference to costs for the SRO, what we're thinking, and go from there. I'd like to get that out soon, so I'm working on that. And we had a generous donation by a resident that wants to remain anonymous. He asked me to put together a wish list, I did, and he purchased all the stuff that's here, the backpack included, but I wanted to show you. So this will go in service and this will go out on every shift with a shift supervisor. But contained in here is a 20-pack of 25 tourniquets. And these are a new style tourniquet from the military style that we've had before. Everybody basically knows how to use a zip tie. So these are going to be used in case there is unfortunately an incident where they would need to be used, and they'll be just given to people as we need to, and then they can apply it themselves, or if they're next to somebody that's injured and needs it. So that was very generous on that end. And then we were given a thermal imaging scope. Basically it picks up heat signatures. The fire departments usually have bigger ones, but this one will be very convenient for us to use. So I asked the individual if he wants me to name him, and he wished not to, so I won't. But it was a very generous donation, because this was about $1,400.
very nice, thank you.
You should have thanked the individual on the board.
I can do that. So actually, I think that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
The road master report will be at our next meeting. We'll continue with treasurer's report.
Okay, you got a list of bills. They are as follows. You have a total general fund of $50,135.74. Total state fund of $13,480.20. And a total light fund of $14,104.76. Questions? Hearing none, I make a motion that those be paid as presented.
I'll second the motion. Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Before you move on, I told Jeff I'd get an answer from him on his question of the, that was just an approval. That check obviously is not going to go out. And I thought as much, but I wasn't going to say that because I wasn't sure. She just had it on her desk. We approved it. The check will go out, so they get it at the end of all. No money going out until, okay?
Makes sense.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, land planning.
This is Chair, I'll cover for Brent Mead tonight. We only have, at this point, one item on the land planning side, and then we have a slew of road dedications to do. So this first item is for 45 South Reamstown Road. It is simply a lot annexation plan, combining 2 lots into one. And you have before you a series of motions that reflect that this is a very simple plan, therefore it's giving some ordinance relief for things that are really unnecessary. The first item is a motion to approve a waiver modification of section 194-13B3 related to locating and depicting physical features within 200 feet of the subject tract to relieve the applicant from showing additional information beyond what is currently shown on the plans and necessary to address outstanding review comments.
I don't see anybody here. I'll make that motion. For second.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
And again, the next one is granting relief to the plan set. Motion is to approve a waiver modification of section 194-13B3A and 194-40-B related to locating and depicting wetland areas related to the subject properties, conditioned upon notation being added to the plan stating that prior to authorizing any proposed earth disturbance or construction on the subject properties, the township may require a wetland delineation to be performed in accordance with applicable standards and requirements of the Conservation District, DEP, and/or Army Corps of Engineers.
I'll make that motion.
A second. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, the third motion is to approve a waiver modification, section 194-13B4, related to requiring the applicant to submit a Pennsylvania Natural Diversity Inventory, otherwise known as PIND habitat clearance, conditioned upon notation being added to the plan stating that prior to authorizing any proposed earth disturbance or construction of the subject property, the township may require a PIND clearance to be obtained.
Motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No. Motion carried. Thank you.
And then Brent just had a note, I think he just wants the board to acknowledge reference in comment number 6 to the Becker Engineering Review Letter dated June 20, 2018. The Township Board of Supervisors confirm that no roadway frontage improvements or additional airway are warranted at this time. And basically, it's my recommendation that there be no frontage improvements or roadway at this time obtained for a simple subdivision and annexation plan. And the next one is a motion to conditionally approve the 45 South Greenstone Road lot annexation plan, conditioned upon the applicant addressing all outstanding items as outlined in the Becker email dated August 2nd, 2018, to the satisfaction of the township engineer, and township solicitor.
A motion.
I'll second that.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, what you have before you next is something that's been years in the making at this point.
Many years.
We have the Morganshire roadway dedications for Phase 2 to talk about. I do not see Miss Patty Brubaker in the audience, but I do want to go on the record formally thanking her for what she did over the last couple of years. Unbeknownst to probably a lot of the community as well as the homeowners association. When her husband passed away, she inherited the project. She is not a land developer. And she could have at any time walked away from the project, and it would have forced the township to take over the roads and what remained to be done with the securities, as well as just walked away from her responsibilities in development in general. Instead, she chose to do the right thing, and quite frankly, at great expense to her, including taking out another mortgage, she took on and completed the project. So she did not make any money in the deal. She put a lot of her own personal money into completing the project instead of walking away. So when we had developers like Heatherwoods, where the developer just walked away, we had an individual that did the right thing. And did what was in the best interest of the community in that development. And she basically honored all her commitments that her husband had made with that development. So I'm proud to say that at this point we are ready to take over the Phase 2 roadway dedication, and you have a slew of resolutions and deed dedications. And I'll read the language for the first one.
Would it be appropriate for her to send a thank you letter to her?
if you would like me to do that, I'd be glad to do that.
Yeah, that'd be,
Yeah, I think it'd be a nice idea.
Okay.
Yes, please do.
So what, these are all going to be the same motion, and basically it's a very simple motion. It's just basically allowing execution, establish the resolution, and assigning the deed of dedication. So you're going to have a motion to adopt the resolution of 2018-08 to 2018-12 and the deed of dedication. So what I'm going to do is I'll read off each resolution and each deed of dedication, ask for a motion to approve them both simultaneously, and then we'll move on to the next one. We basically have to do one for every street.
Yeah.
And then when this is all said and done, there's going to be a series of documents at the end of the meeting for you to sign at this point. So the first motion is to adopt resolution 2018-08 and to the deed of dedication for Arabian Court in Warwickshire Phase 2.
So we're looking for a motion to adopt resolution 2018-08. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried.
Next motion is to adopt resolution 2018-09 and a deed of dedication for Mustang Trail North for Morganshire Phase 2.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
The next motion is to adopt resolution 2018-10 and a deed of dedication for Mustang Trail Road South for Morganshire Phase 2.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion. Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
Next motion is to adopt resolution 2018-11 and a deed of dedication for Rome Drive for Morganshire Phase 2.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
Next motion is to adopt resolution 2018-12 and a deed of dedication for Royal Horse Way for Morganshire Phase 2.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
I'll draft the letter, and if I could request to have the board sign and say.
Yes. Yes, please.
Mr. Russell, if you may, what is roughly the amount of security left on that development?
I do not know, but I do know that we have been checking the security and is adequate for the basin work that remains at this point. We'll get back to you for the next meeting for that. But obviously, that would be a next step at our next meeting. We're going to be releasing some of the securities for the roadways in particular, basically going down into the maintenance and warranty part of the roadways.
They're a little ways away from being left off on the basin work, I was.
I'm anticipating that we will have dedication to basins this fall. We're not that far off at this point.
Even with several lots unsold.
What happens with those last few remaining lots, then they have to do individual ENS on the ones that remain at this point. It's kind of what we're doing with Stony Point. We're now getting to the point where they do final restoration, but we have a couple of lots that are still outstanding at this point.
Thank you.
Okay, next is permission to send the 218 Falls newsletter to the printer. Lisa's been, we're going to change the picture of the patrol cars for the new one. Besides that, I'm happy with it.
I did make one change. I don't know if you're aware of it from when it did occur, but I know I let the chairman know, but I did pull out the polling locations and the burn part, and I put in a blurb at the request of the Representative EMS about the state of ambulances in the state. So I put a WJL article in there that was addressing the issues that ambulances are facing and some of the laws that are being considered by the state legislature right now.
Okay. Looking for a motion?
Yes.
Make a motion, we send this proposed letter to the printer.
I'll second that with the change. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Fry, would you like to summarize a little what's in that newsletter, or anything new, or the same old stuff?
On the front page, it will show the new patrol car graphics, the two new signage. Next page is bye-bye paper dumpster, and gives you a highlight of what you can recycle now and not recycle. There's a pool, information about the pool, emergency service, what Scott talked about. Oh, you have it there.
Long enough for everybody.
Oh, it's on video.
Right.
Took them a minute to get it up there.
Okay. Well, then I don't have to go over it.
Right.
You can see it.
Well, it's a little fine.
Do you need my glasses?
I'm not sure they'll help us different.
There, oh, look at that.
Then there's a new section that was put in there about volunteering, so it's different than what we've done in the past. And then a couple of the ones that have been repeats, like about the leaves. And we had to put this as a DEP mandated thing about the pond lots. And then there's another DEP mandated thing for our authorities that have to be about the coordination. That's really newsletter.
Is there anything in there about the beautification strategy?
There's nothing in there at this point in time, only because we started those discussions. We haven't really finalized what direction we're going in, what the action items are, and what the details are. So we're still in the initial phases of that. So we didn't want to put anything like that in there yet.
Does the picture of the new car there highlight any of the graphics, or?
That picture does not have it on.
Okay.
That's why I said he changed it.
Hmm?
Scott said he wants to change the picture.
Yeah, the picture will be changed tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll have the new graphics on the new car.
Looks nice. I like it. Any other comments? Okay, thank you. Full business. Alert planning policies and procedures.
This memo's a little small to read, so what I'll do is I kind of highlight. We have had 2 meetings now with the school district with the working group for LERTA. And we're at the initial point of just getting feedback only, not necessarily, it's certainly not a vote or any discussion, but we have kind of looked at some of the options. And I just want to talk about the 5 things that have been discussed and have occurred. So the LERTA advisory group met on July 17th and August 1st to review possible options for establishing a LERTA, which is the Local Economic Revitalization Tax Assistance District in East Cocalico Township. The group reviewed the LERTA program, discussed development in East Cocalico Township and at length. And at the conclusion of these 2 meetings, the group decided it'd be good to just take back the initial round of conversations that occurred back to the supervisors and to the school board. So my counterpart, Dr. Musser, is going to be doing the exact same thing with the school board that I'm doing here right now. And all it is just to get some additional feedback to see if we're heading in the right direction, or we need to go in a different direction, or if you just want to reserve judgment right now, that's perfectly fine too. But just get a little bit of feedback. So the first thing we did is we talked about the approach to LERTA. We talked about that it'd be best to do a crawl, walk, run approach. We viewed the UGI Corporate Center as being the crawl phase. It introduced the township and the school district to LERTA and how it's utilized and applied, and as a lot of documents that were prepared for that will become the base documents for any future LERTA program. The second one was a recommendation to consider setting up an initial LERTA district by establishing a LERTA zone for the commercial and industrial zones only. So this would be kind of trying to focus development primarily on Colonel Howard Boulevard, Denver Road, and 272, which is where the bulk of our industrial and commercial zoning is. We also have a little bit up and down Church Street too. But that is an initial recommendation, kind of like a walk phase, just to kind of see how LERTA is responding, and if we can, in particular, encourage development along Route 272. The third thing was we, upon some research that occurred with the group, most of the LERTAs in the state have some sort of minimal increase in assessed value for them to even enter into the LERTA program. And so what we found was a number of the municipalities that have LERTA had set at that $25,000 minimum threshold for assessment increase in order to even qualify for a LERTA. As we talked about that, that really kind of reflects the desire not to have a business do like a facade improvement and come back with a, they increase the value of the property $5,000 and having to go through the whole drill and doing a loader or something like that. So it's kind of a way of kind of weeding out some of the smaller projects with loader. The fourth one was just establishing a period of time. Again, this is just a suggestion, but we suggested looking at possibly a 5-year period for Alerta, which would represent 6 years total, and a little bit different style. So there's a lot of Alertas that were out there, anywhere from 10, 7, and 5 seemed to be the most common, although there were some Alertas that were 3, where basically they gave a total rebate for the 3 years and then they went to full taxes after 3 years. So we were just throwing this out as a time period just to get the discussion going on the time period, and throwing out at least an overall concept that a developer needs the most relief in the first 2 years of the project, given financing and other issues. So that whatever Alerta period we come up with, if we can weight the relief a little bit heavier to the very beginning of a project, that will provide a maximum value to the developer, while probably still resulting in the same amount of tax relief. So what that shows there is the first 2 years there would be no increase in assessment, and after that the assessment would be stepped up, and that was the concept being proposed with that. And then the last concept that was being recommended from the group was to put a time limit in there. Most of the Alertas did have a time limit thrown in there, either for the sake of just limiting it to that time period or making it be reevaluated. And so we're recommending an initial 3-year period for this. It would be basically set up as a resolution as part of the Alerta ordinance that would be adopted by the township. And that would allow the township and the district opportunity to review the program and determine whether to leave the program in place, change the program, or stop the program based on the results. And it's also recommended that we would start that review in about 2 years after the first 2 years when we start getting information. And we recognize that probably for the first year there would be very little information because developers would have to have plans prepared and then decide whether they might submit for and apply for a loan or not. So those are just some overall concepts. Again, there's nothing set in stone. It was just kind of to throw something out there just so that the working group can kind of start formulating ideas and then come back to both of us with something a little bit more concrete at this point.
Question for you, and I guess Jeff's on that also, for both of you. Overall tone or sense in terms of the school, in terms of implementing something along these lines?
I'd say the school is very supportive now of participating in Alerta. I think we can state that pretty safely. At least the school representatives that were at the working group meeting.
I want to hear what the board says.
We're very supportive, but there is a board member on there, and if Dr. Musser, the Cliff, and myself was on there, so you got 2 very influential people, plus the finance director of the school district has been sitting on the meeting. So you got some pretty heavyweight participating in the meeting.
If I could add, I think there was no hesitancy from the board members there. I talked to 2 additional board members, and they appear like they are all in favor of moving ahead with it as well. One other thing that on the detail end, the assessment office in Lancaster was contacted basically to look at this $25,000 minimum threshold. When you have minimal increases on some of these properties, well, what kind of idea can you give the property owner ahead of time whether you're going to really qualify or not? And with the improvements you make on property, the dollars spent don't necessarily correspond with the assessment increase. And trying to get something out of them was like trying to pull teeth. Every situation is different in their eyes. There's been properties in the county that have spent dollar for dollar with the assessment increase, And then other properties where maybe it's only 20 or 25% increase in assessment per dollar spent. So there's really no way to forecast ahead of time whether somebody's going to apply, unless it's a very large project, obviously. But that was a little disappointing, I guess, to not have a little guidance on that, actually to help an applicant. And, you know, obviously too, they won't know until the project's done and occupied and the assessment board can actually put a number on it. So it can be kind of a shot in the dark for anybody that's not having a really large project. You know, you can't count on that coming through, because who knows where the assessment board's going to wind up with that. But getting back to your question, Mr. Carrasco, yeah, they appear to be all in on that. The discussion went different ways with the 5-year time frame that's being suggested here. You know, it's shorter than a 7-year, a lot shorter than the 10-year, but front-loading it that extra year in the beginning kind of offsets some of the minimal deferrals later on in it. So, you know, it seems like a happy medium, a good place to start. And, you know, like Mr. Russell said, the consensus was to reevaluate in a couple of years once, you know, before this thing ends, to see where it goes, what we've learned from it. And, you know, each community is different. It's hard to tell where this is going to go and who's going to want to step up for it. One of the other places the discussion did go as well is adding another carrot to this in some kind of reduction in fees, whether it's a rec fee or a traffic impact or something, to kind of give it a little more splash and show that things are starting to go in a different direction here. So, you know, the school board, I think, was enthusiastic hearing that as well, although, you know, they really don't have a whole lot of input on it because they're looking at the whole district. So, you know, I think they were, like I said, they were enthusiastic to see that there's some positive steps being made here.
So it's fair to say, I think what I'm hearing is some of the things you said, Jeff, it's a true greenfield opportunity. I mean, in terms of the boundary conditions we can set up in doing this, when you start looking at some of these municipalities that are out there, they're all over the map. So it really is an opportunity to design it the way we think it should be designed that's beneficial to East Cocalico.
And there's precedent for most anything.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions. So basically, if I understand this right, I'm a business owner and I come in and if this goes through, I would present a plan to the township, and the township would have to wait until the assessment office comes out and assesses my property after the fact to see if I even qualify. Is that correct? And that might take how many years?
Most municipalities, the zoning officer handles a building permit and he gives a LERTA application along with it. And, you know, it's there again, it doesn't happen. The assessment office, you know, calls the shots on this.
Right. That's what
They justify it. And an interesting part was that the assessment office, the assessor putting the price on the property after the improvement does not know it's in LERTA. It goes to, once the price is put on the property, it goes back into the office and then somebody else pulls it out and say, oh, this is LERTA eligible, and then they make the adjustment accordingly. So I thought that was an interesting twist to this. It keeps the assessor from skewing the initial number.
They don't qualify for LERTA until they get a certificate of occupancy that the
Yeah.
project is being completed.
Yeah,
Right, but they don't get a tax reduction right away until the assessment comes through.
the first full year afterwards.
Right, okay. what would qualify, anything I would do to my property that would change the assessment by $25,000 would qualify? In other words, if I expand my parking lot, if I put all new shrubbery around the building, I mean, are the parameters, or are we just throwing this $25,000 out, or are we saying it's gotta be something that changes the physical value of the property? I mean, putting more trees in it ain't gonna change the value of
Right.
Four Seasons.
That's where the $25,000 in assessed value comes in. So, yeah, putting $25,000 worth of shrubberies down there will not change your assessment squat
Correct.
at this
Do
point.
we need to spell those type of things out, or is that an understood universal? I mean, there's always some Wall Street lawyer out there that's gonna pick this thing to pieces and come in here.
I agree, that's why we want to get some feedback. I think we will have to expand. Right now, it's just,
I understand.
the overall concept is we want to put some things in place that keeps people really from trying to apply because of a facade improvement. And we want the money going to large projects that really bring value. And what we had talked about in the working group was really to even a $25,000 threshold. That's not high bar to me, but you have to expand. You got to put something in your facility to get a decent amount. So you'd have to put 1,000, 2,000 square feet in to get $25,000 of assessment or something like that. We just said we didn't want somebody going in and replacing windows on their business and then coming back and saying, I want a logo at this point.
Well, that's why I'm trying to point these things out, because there's some sharp people, and I'm not gonna name names, that have been through this township before, and they picked us to pieces on certain things, and, you know, we weren't thinking far enough ahead, and they were ahead of the curve. So I'm just trying to prevent that from happening down the road, that we don't back ourselves into a corner that we can't defend, that's all. I don't think it's a bad idea at all. I question the $25,000. I don't think to me, that's chump change, really. That's not near enough. It ought to be at a minimum 75,000, my way of thinking. I mean, that isn't even worth talking about.
When you did the
$25,000 assessment is nothing.
Right, that's why.
And what happens when they reassess?
Right. Well, that's also why I threw that number in there. So basically, 25,000 represents only a $581
Right.
tax break. Now, when we
Per
talk
year.
per year,
Right.
right.
First year.
So, but when we talk about, let's say, what was the number I was using? I'll use a number just because I happen to know in my head right now. So let's say we increase something by $3.5 million. So somebody goes from assessed value of $1 million to $4.5 million after doing a project. So that's a $3.5 million delta right there. That is the increase in assessment. Over just throwing in the 5-year window that we did right there, that results in a tax assistance, tax rebate, whatever you want to call it, of $280,000. That starts becoming a real number.
Right.
And from a developer's perspective, that really can make the difference. That's a mortgage payment for the first year of a project, where if they're a little tight on credit, because usually that is the first year you're tight on credit, that can help with that kind of a payment or purchase. So it definitely becomes more of a heavy hitter for a larger project. And I think that was what we were looking at, something that we can screen some way to keep the smaller projects out. And so whether it's 25, 75, whether there's some additional criteria, and I think that's all about discussion. I think the biggest concept is whether the board feels we should have some sort of criteria to screen the small stuff out. And if that's the thought process, we can come back.
I mean, I just made a quick list of what does this include? Landscaping, stormwater, MS4, air pollution, expanded parking lots, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you can go on and on and on, that people have come into this township and said they've already got an existing business and they want to expand their parking lot. They're not doing anything to their business, but they want to expand their parking lot.
Right.
And that's not cheap. You know, you get with stormwater, you get the engineering involved and everything else, you can run up a hang of a pile, but you haven't done anything to increase the true assessed value of the property, so.
Well, and that's the nice part about having the assessment office do the legwork on it. They're gonna weed out any of that kind of stuff. I'm not sure parking lots aren't accessible, are they?
No, that's what we're saying, that's a more of a, again, that's,
Yeah, it doesn't qualify, so it's
It's-
irrelevant to that.
But my gist is that we don't make it so generic that every Tom, Dick, and Harry that wants to do something comes in the door and ties up the township time and the assessment office time to go this back.
Yeah.
I mean, the assessor just went through the county. We saw the list of people in this township that appealed their assessment, and they're still going. Well, not now, not anymore, but they were. It drug on forever and ever and ever. So, you know, yeah, they don't have a fun job, there's two ways about it. Because nobody wants to pay the assessment, but they certainly wouldn't sell the property for what they're assessed for either. So,
I think part of the theory in this too is that when somebody applies for it, you know, sooner or later, that 2 year, 3 year, 4, it runs out, and you got a higher assessment. So, you know, I don't know that they're gonna apply for it thinking this is a gift forever. Sometimes it runs out,
yes.
and you're gonna be paying a higher number. So, you know, why are you looking for, nobody wants that higher number. It's gonna come, so.
I'd say, what I'm hearing from you, Scott, is you're looking for kind of boundary conditions in terms of what we're thinking, in terms of the direction you're moving, right? The one thing that I would say to probably help you out and help your working group out here is, I think we as a board should ask ourselves a fundamental question to help them out right now. And the fundamental question that I see right now for the LERTA is, what's the philosophy we want to use for this LERTA? Do we want to see, Alan, do we want to see aggressive growth? Is that the intent of this? Is it something we want to see that really kickstarts some aggressive growth along, you guys have a boundary condition here set up along 272. So let's use that as an example.
Well, it's a corridor. It's
Well, the corridor, right.
It's not,
Right.
it's commercial
So let's,
industrial, period.
right, so let's just use that as an example.
Yeah.
I mean, is the intent here that we really want to accelerate that growth and facilitate it,
We want to facilitate it, yes.
right? Or is the intent here of the LERTA that we don't, there isn't a time constraint and we don't need to emphasize this growth immediately? And it can go on and we can wait a few years before we refine all the details of the LERTA. My personal opinion is I like the direction you guys are going in. There's a lot of little details in here that don't, this is my opinion, that can be worked out later. I'm of the opinion what I would like to see is the aggressive, something set up on the LERTA that is so enticing, so aggressive, that it causes any developer to really look in the mirror and think 2 and 3 times before he lets that opportunity go away, and possibly miss this economic cycle that we're in right now. So if that gives you a little bit of a boundary in terms of my personal thought process, okay? I'm in agreement with Doug in terms of, I think we need to run a little bit of, you didn't say test case, but I'm agreeing in terms of, I think of it as a test case. We do it in a specific corridor. I agree with, is 25,000 the right number? I'm not sure. Or is there something along the lines of it's 25,000 of an assessed value, or X percent, or Y square footage increase of a business? I don't know.
Yeah,
Or possibly number of jobs increased.
Or number of jobs, excellent
Another
point.
consideration.
You're starting to take the assessment board away from it then with
Yeah.
additional qualifiers. You know, that's,
Okay.
if you stick with the numbers they know, they can make the call. You start pulling different variables in the case there, well, then they're gonna look at you funny, I guess. It's,
Yeah,
That's fair, that's a fair comment, I didn't think.
Yeah, so I was along the same lines there, but I think jobs, obviously jobs are something that we want to be focused on. It's also kind of a,
Right,
beyond
because
the
Alerta
little-
doesn't.
little
cut
fuzzy
your
here.
income From the taxes.
you know,
It doesn't affect the income tax from those people.
right, I mean, the idea is to kind of, in many ways too, though, to make the application process somewhat simple for both the person that's applying for it as well as us as staff kind of trying to process this. And I think we'll go back, we'll look at what some of the other ways that municipalities have put some controls or constraints on there with the guidelines of what we've gotten here. But the thing I would push back on is I would like the guidelines to be somewhat manageable on our end as a township staff, so that we're not.
Well, that's what I meant. You gotta, to me, there's gotta be qualifiers, clarification, wording that they know what's what. They don't come in here and we're gonna do this, and then you get 20 different phone calls on 14 different days about what if I do this and what if I do that. That's all spelled out right up front, you know, that they know that this will make it qualify, that won't, don't even talk to me if it's about this. It doesn't work. You know, the one thing, and I'm not against this at all, obviously, because I voted for UGI and the hardship they were going through with their roads, and I know that was a touchy situation, but I still think it was the right decision to make. Tying this to assessments, I think is the wrong way to go. Personally, I do, because I don't think assessment should have anything to do with learning. I think they're two different, it's elephants and oranges, to me. It's all about, you got a hardship putting your building up, tell me all about it. It's like going to the zoning hearing board. They don't like the way the law is written as far as the zoning goes, so now they have a right of appeal, come into the zoning hearing board and plead their case. And I'm simply saying that to put this all on assessment is total, to me, is wrong. I don't think it's the right way to go. I think that the Alerta thing was written so that it's there to use originally as a hardship for a guy because, well, I've said it before, just because you own land doesn't mean you can build it. And that was a proven fact with what UGI had to do to get into their property because they couldn't get off where they wanted to because the state wouldn't let them. That was an automatic hardship. They had to spend a whole extra pile of money to get the roadway to go into their house, plus bring the utilities and everything else there, because we did a lousy job of doing that. That's all. It's just my own personal feeling is that assessment should have nothing to do with learning, period.
well, when reviewing, LERT is used in way more than 100 cases throughout Pennsylvania and other states as well. And I didn't find anything where they didn't use the assessment board for the qualifier. It takes, every property throughout Pennsylvania has an assessed value. Every property. And that takes the onus off of us as a municipality. It puts it on Lancaster County Assessment. And they have experience there with this. With Lancaster City, Manheim Borough, Mountjoy Borough. I read where East Lampeter's got 5 properties they want to put Alerta on. They have that kind of experience to put that number on. It takes Tony off the hook. It takes you as a board off
Well,
the hook.
he's only on the hook for, he has nothing to do with learning. He won't ever, as far as I'm concerned.
For supplying information.
Well, all right, but that's
And
not
nobody-
off the hook, that's part of his job anyhow.
Nobody can come back and say, well, you told me this.
Well, they
It's
will.
real clear in big letters here.
They do.
This is a Lancaster County Assessment Office decision. It's not East Cocalico's. We're offering it to you, but it comes down to them. And, that just levels the playing field.
Well,
That's their job, is to put numbers on property. It's not our job, it's their job. So let them do their job.
well, and that's.
And,
we're gonna-
there's no precedent I found anywhere else for any other idea.
Well, and again, I apologize, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but then I go back to that 25, that number to me is way low. If that's what we're gonna base it on, that number's gotta be higher. That number has to be higher, because it is nothing. It is,
Well,
I'm
you-
sorry, it is nothing. I mean, there's people in this township, their property values went up $25,000 like that.
Right.
They don't get to qualify, and we should never let them either.
Well,
We should never, it should just be commercial and industrial. It has nothing to do with putting a new garage up at your house or anything like that. That doesn't apply.
Okay. Well, there is municipalities that do that.
Well,
That's,
I know.
that's okay. That's not the issue. You know, it still comes back to who's gonna make that call. Do you wanna sit in the seat and say,
Well,
you know, you applied now, I'm sorry, your hardship isn't bad enough?
Well, that's why I said, I don't believe it should be based on assessment. I think it ought to be the way it was handled with the first guy came in the door. And we offered to the second guy, and all he wanted to do was, he didn't want the whole thing. He only wanted to own part of his building. Now,
Well,
unfortunately, the school district went against him, so that was a no-no, you know, I mean, that's,
he did that, 'cause we both know he did that because that's all he thought he could get.
well, but that's.
He was he jumped the gun with his, you know, from where we were as a municipality.
Right.
So,
Right.
you know, he understands that. But, you know, ultimately with UGI, the one you've already approved, it's gonna come down to the assessment office putting a number on it, right? That's gonna determine the amount of LRTA they get.
Well, yeah, right,
Well,
yeah.
that's what we're talking
In
about.
in that respect, yes.
You know, once again, I found no number higher than 25,000 as a qualifier. Somebody could spend $50,000 on a project there and probably still not meet that 25 qualifier. They could maybe spend 75 and
They
not
could,
make
they
the
could spend
qualifier.
150,000 and not meet the qualifier.
So, you know, man, if they're,
See,
you know,
that's-
it's all about trying to increase the assessed value, increase the base, right?
Yeah, and that's where we need to be careful with that qualifier number, because again, it goes back to what's the intent of us putting the LRTA in place in this Cocalico
Well,
Township. If the number's too high, we can say all we want, we have LRTA, no one will take advantage of it.
You'll be laughed at, and it's like, yeah, who's
Well-
gonna meet that number?
and that goes back to what I said, that's why I'm against, my personal opinion is they don't get tied together, but it's gonna be a board decision, there's 3 guys, and 2 people are gonna win the battle, so,
Well, what other option is there? That's, I mean,
again, plead your hardship, plead your case.
you're gonna make that decision.
We
Who's
did it
gonna
with
make
UGI. We did it with, and it was the right decision. But, you know, they spent an enormous amount of money that they
Sure.
weren't counting on.
Sure.
Now, admittedly, some of that was probably, as you stated with this other gentleman, their short-sightedness and not realizing that there's bog turtles or supposedly bog turtles out there. And then it was proved that there wasn't. But in the meantime, their whole project got throttled because of that. So, you know, that gets blamed on the Tree Hugger Society. Sorry, said it. That's how I feel.
Well, I
Hold
think
up a project for an animal this big is,
I think eventually we heard them admit their engineers might have not informed them adequately before they were got in.
right. But
So-
again, the assessment, we're off the hook. The only guy that gets on the hook is the guy, and they get to appeal it anyhow. You get, everybody in this room gets to appeal their assessment,
Sure.
and they'll listen to you. You just better plead your case.
You better have good
You
information.
better have
for
good
that.
information, that's right.
Mr. Chair, I think we have good guidance at this
Yeah,
point.
well,
I-
sorry, I didn't mean to get
No,
one.
I personally would like to see what the school feedback from them
We'll
first.
get our feedback. I will go back and I'll work with the working group. I do think, I mean, based on what I heard, I do think there's a little compromise and some middle ground here. I do think I would personally still support having some sort of minimal assessment to keep small projects out. But I also think it would probably be a good step for the applicant to at least demonstrate a hardship, just like the variance is a requirement in the zoning hearing board that you gotta actually demonstrate a hardship.
Right.
It's not hard to do on 272. All the person has to do is say, nut, curb, sidewalk, drainage, they got a hardship, trust me. I mean, so it's not a hard process to document hardships at this point.
Well, then what I'm hearing you say, no one's gonna have one. So why even go down that road?
I think just keeping to the spirit of the law, which is, there's some, there should be kind of a documented hardship. But it's not hard, in most of the areas of the township, it's not hard to document a hardship to do a certain type of development project. So, again, that will eliminate facade improvements.
Well, it's not accessible anyway.
Right, so,
So,
Let me take a step back and ask both of you this question. What's your target timeline or target deadline in terms of actually presenting us something?
school board, I think, meets after the next supervisor meeting
yeah,
for the first time.
So it won't be the
we
next
would
month.
be looking to September to get something a little more formal. I do think there's one potential LURA request in the wings, and I don't want to go into any more detail than that. That would actually be the difference between a project happening and a project not happening. So I would ask that once we start this process, if the school district jumps in with both feet, like I think they are, that we kind of keep the process moving at this point for some sort of adoption in 2018.
Okay.
We have a lot of steps to go through. We had to adopt an ordinance for establishing a LURA zone, which is exclusively at the township, because that school district does not adopt that ordinance. But then there's supporting resolutions for setting the program up that both the school district and the township will need to adopt, which is basically putting the criteria together. All you will do is establish the zone. So say hypothetically you do make it the commercial industrial zone.
That's the easy part.
That's done. Now the next step is putting the actual application process together. Because remember, the application process required the school district, the county, and the township each to sign off on an application. So we'd have to come up with an application process that the school district, the township, and the county also signs off on. The county, usually will only do that, they see the school board and the township board of supervisors are unified. And that step's going to that'll take a couple months to put that together. And that's going to get into the weeds with everything that we're talking about tonight gets put into that application process.
And then Tom Goodman will have to look at it too.
Right, and it's taking all the, and it's going to take a lot. The nice thing is, we're talking crawl, walk, run. We've already developed the legal documents, and the group looked at it. The legal documents put together for UTI are pretty good at this point so we're not talking about a lot of changes that have to occur there. It's just what is going to be the qualifiers, basically the pre-screening of people coming into the program. Who's going to be screened out of the program, and who can get actually past first base and potentially enter into the program.
So what I'm hearing is a goal of 2018, which is good. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
The legal framework that UGI had put together is very similar in language to what other municipalities have. It'll be just a matter of adding additional qualifiers in that framework. I don't think that would be too problematic at all. But yeah, the one other thing to keep in mind, I think the list of suggestions there was a unanimous decision by everybody that was in the room. There was, a little give and take on a few items, but everybody there was unanimous on all those points.
Good. Thank you. Moving on, focus group meeting with local business owners. Tony?
Yes, sir. We sent out the applications last Friday. Very good response. I got over the
Invitation,
What's that?
invitation.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we sent out the invitations.
What did you say?
Application.
Oh, yeah, so, fine, this is very
You're paying attention, Al.
he's still feeling the effects of when he went out to the sign to see if it still had power.
Now it's a hazard.
I thought it was a new way to make revenue, you sign in and you can be on the ground floor here.
We sent out over 200 invitations, and that was on last Friday. And Monday morning, I had half a dozen people say, yes, we'll be there. And it's been going ever since. Arlene's making a detailed list of who's going to be there. So, yeah, we're hopeful it'll be a nice meeting.
We're looking forward.
Yeah, we will. I'll have Arlene there. No recording, no meeting minutes, just some sketched items and highlights of what we discussed. trying to keep it very informal, open, and accommodating. And everybody seems to be on board with that.
Good, thank you.
Great.
I'm sure the water situation will probably be discussed there also. Scott and I handle those questions.
Moving on, gated woody waste area.
Mr. Chair, it was my goal to have a number for you tonight, but we had the vendor come out, he gave us a quote, and I sent him back to give us another quote, because he gave us a quote for 600 cards max, and I feel we're going to have more than 600 cards purchased, so hopefully by next meeting I'll have a number for that.
Good. Traffic and safety at intersection of North Muddy Creek Road and 272.
We are involved with the Foxbrook traffic study, which is actually talking about that intersection right now. I do have John Schick from R2 and PennDOT involved in that, so I'll let you know when I have more information before.
Okay.
Can I, by the way, just for the record, you were saying you were starting to warm up to circles?
We call them roundabouts, but yeah, not New Jersey traffic circles.
Just so you know, because I have to say this to you as an engineer, what's happening up on 222 is exactly what I expected. Doug, they can't get the 53 footers around those curves. Every single 53 footer leans into the other lane. They take a lane and a half to 2 lanes going around the circle.
You don't mean 222, you mean 322.
No,
220.
I'm sorry, 222 going
North
up
of
downtown.
Okay.
Where
I
they
thought you
put
meant
the,
Up near Baby
by the
Creek, up
sheets,
in
Baby
there.
Creek. Yeah, there's just
Because
not
I thought
enough.
first she's moves, it slows
good.
the whole business down, but it doesn't stop it, yeah.
But I had to tease Scott because he was warming up.
I was
to the
warming up,
idea.
I didn't say
But see,
quickly.
you don't drive that size
Well,
trailer.
first you had a lot of influx of money from a private entity with theirs, there was some other politics.
Well, Milton.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll take your conservative for 53 footers.
In the back, somebody could-
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, don't put flower beds in the center of your new roundabouts. 'Cause I just drive.
Yeah, that's right, thank you. Now they're planting in the center of the circle, so in about 9 months, you won't be able to see who's coming.
No, I do not want Chris Floor and our road crew maintaining flowers in the middle of 272.
I was just talking with the road crew, they were just up the other day.
With nice, beautiful stone walls, and they have their Spartans up there.
Yeah, that's good for them.
Yeah.
Right, good for that. Right.
And yours is gorgeous, yeah.
Okay, we'll move on. Working group for strategy related to fire and EMS services.
Not too much to report there, but we did have a meeting with Reevestown EMS and Reinhold's EMS, and they are willing to start getting to some discussion about regionalization. I just want to leave it at that right now. So-
Can I make one clarification on that, because there was some questions earlier about that. The working group for related to fire has not met, we're not doing that. We're in the process of pulling together that actual working group itself.
Right.
So that's the action item there.
Okay. Stony Point sidewalk waiver.
I am meeting with the president of Landmark when I'm going to be out next week. When I get back the following week, I'm meeting with the president of Landmark to hammer out an agreement based off the criteria what you guys do. So,
Beautification strategy of East Cocalico Township.
Here's what I'd like to ask the board to do. There's a couple of things, there's a number of things here that I've been thinking about. And I think one of probably the easiest items I would like us to agree on and see if Scott will do this is we've talked a little bit about, and I think it's part of a beautification, it's part of an improvement. Our website has been challenging to work with and horrendous in some cases in terms of getting anything done there. I think what I'd like to do tonight as one first step is get agreement from you and from Doug and from Alan, if it's okay with you guys. Can we at least formally move forward with trying to get that improved and trying to get that cleaned up?
Who's gonna do it?
I think Computer Associates could do that for us.
we can talk to our
Yeah.
I was hoping that's what you'd say, I wasn't gonna lead you.
Oh, no. I'm not writing code for websites.
No,
We haven't got it.
But our
I didn't mean it
website
that
is.
way,
Yeah, we can, if you guys give me the green light, at least talk to Bussy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I gotta admit, I'm a little biased, I don't wanna talk about East Hempfield, but you go to East Hempfield's website, it's so much easier to pull information than what we have with Revise. Revise is kinda very, very limited, and they don't give Lisa too many tools for her to really do that. And you maximized out pretty much everything we could do with that website. And it made what we've been trying to do with the online payments for the pool, it's a very difficult application process. The Municipal Pay website's awesome. And we had Liz and everybody, I think we all warmed up that site's really easy to work with. The application process, we made basically kind of did a Band-Aid to make that work with our website. And we made it work for this year, but it took a lot of labor to get that to work. And it is confusing at times when someone tries to apply. And
There were hiccups.
we got a lot of hiccups with that, and so our website really just doesn't support the town. The most important thing is the website is getting information out. And that's what when the website's difficult to follow, that's not really meeting its goal.
And a company like Custom Computers that has done it before, they have set modules that they use. They're just changing names, changing some pictures, formats, so, yeah, it's cut and paste, that's right. So if it's okay with both of you, can we formally start that?
Yep.
Okay. And then the other thing I'd like to do, if it's okay with both of you, is what I'd like to do is just, because it'll take some time from the employees and some of the departments within East Cocalico, I just wanted to, on my own, just kind of sit down with them and say, tell me where you think there's some improvements, what do you think about some of these logos, such as Community First, again, just to gather the data, just to get some ideas, if you guys are okay with that. Okay, thank you. Yep.
Mr. Carrasco, will you be
Yes.
going to the boards as well, the other boards?
That's part of my plan, is
Okay.
actually to start to get gather the information from, just to put some people on the spot, like Lisa or Tony as an example in terms of, what do you think of this idea, that idea, and then go to the boards themselves, talk to them a little bit about it and see what they think. Get the feedback and bring it back to Doug and Al. Okay?
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Perhaps some feedback on Tony's focus group, there you have a wide section of the community
Absolutely.
there too.
Absolutely, yes. And the nice thing about that is that's a good point. That'll be feedback from a different perspective. That'll be from a completely different angle. So,
Absolutely.
yep, thank you.
Okay, new business, electric procurement discussion.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to pull up what I just got today. This is very short notice, and it's not something I like to normally do during new business, but if I can explain a little bit about what we have here. I looked at with an electric procurement company and asked them to look at all of our electric bills. And we had already, for the record, had looked at CoStars and a couple other organizations that had them look at our bills. So Progressive looked at our bills and they came back with two different recommendations. And the recommendations are based on basically electricity futures. And it's something that I did at Vertu because Vertu is heavy in the energy market. So I actually got to learn this process and work with power plants and with electricity providers. We are, let me just flip two down here. There we go. Okay, so this right now gives you an idea of how market fluctuations are occurring. We are right now down here. And we're in what is called an electrical market. We're in a trough. Right now the market is not at historical lows, but pretty close to it in terms of electricity pricing.
Just for reference, that's 2012 at the beginning of the graph,
Yes.
correct?
Now, and this is 2018.
And 18, yep.
So you're looking at the last couple of years what the energy market's doing. So we're in a situation where we're at a low. Pretty much at this point, electricity prices are going to start going back up. So with that in the background, flipping back up here to the very top, I asked Progressive to look at our bills. Now, when they were looking at our bills, I was thinking that they would look at the Constellation bills. I really didn't think we had too much say in our street lighting bill. They came back and said we could make adjustments to our street light electricity costs, and that was actually going to be where our biggest savings was going to be. So the number we have here, this is the current PPL rate, which is 6.71 cents per kilowatt hour. And they've got 3 different companies that also service in PPL region that would provide this service for street lights. And the street lights is just a fixed rate per light. There's no meter for this situation. So we're basically truly buying what's called bulk electricity for all our street lights. They came back with Direct Energy giving a quote of 4.99 cents per kilowatt hour for 60 months term. Or, I'm sorry, 4.82 cents per kilowatt hour for roughly a 60-month term. That would translate to a savings with our street lights of $35,500 for the next 5 years, which is a pretty significant number that will come off of our street lights for the township.
So our streetlight bill has the electric and then the transmission?
Yeah, we would still get a bill, it would be all one bill from PPL.
Yeah.
We're just changing who's generating electricity for the streetlights. But PPL would still be the supplier transmitter for it, but the generator would be Direct Energy. Now the second quote is for the Constellation accounts. And that one's a little more complicated. So we're with Constellation until December of 2019. So we're about 15, 16 months out with how that translates for work. We're at right now until our Constellation contract is over. Our Constellation contract cannot be broken without penalty. So basically, Progressive's saying you're stuck with Constellation, which is fine. So we asked them to look at, now what they gave us, these are all quotes for a December 2019 conversion based off today dollars. So basically this would be if we were to lock in, for example, Direct Energy is the lowest one again of the 3 providers. If we locked in Direct Energy with this rate, we're basically locked in for that rate, and it would kick in December 2019 for a term of 44 months. Now, why Progressive provided this to us, it's a much smaller savings than what the streetlights represented. It's also, we use a lot less electricity for our non-streetlights. Our streetlights is a significant part of our electrical bill. This is all the rest of our bills. It's the pool, it's the building here.
These are LEDs and
Yeah,
streetlights.
so it's a road crew shed,
You can't jam.
stuff like that. So it's a much smaller bill, plus we already had a pretty decent rate, existing rate with Constellation. When I showed you that historical, we're at one of the historical lows right now over the last 5 years. So when you look at 2012 to 2018, we're at a low. The market's just going to go up again. I mean, that's the way the cycles work. So that what Progressive is suggesting is now, in the summer months, is the time to lock in a future electrical contract before the rates start going back up again. And it's hard to argue with the data because we're already at a low. It might go down to 1/100th of a cent per kilowatt hour or something like that. It fluctuates, but for the most part, historically, it's going to trend back up again from this point. The other issue we got with the December of 2019 is the other trend that he showed us is in the winter, as we approach a winter month period of time, there is a spike in the market because the electricity demands increase at that time. So it actually, when our contract is due, is one of the worst times to try and renew a contract at that point. So right now we're showing $5,000 in savings, but if we try and renew in October or November of 2019, we will probably see it in even greater expense than what we're showing right now. So what would be a $5,000 savings with a lower rate, it would probably be a higher rate than what we're currently paying Constellation right now, which is
The
a
5,000 savings, is that for the 44 month?
Yeah, it would be for the 44 months. So it's not a big savings, but basically it's just trying to lock in a rate right now in anticipation that the market is going to go back up again.
Yeah, we're basically,
Yeah.
or do we do it now for 2019 is basically.
Yeah.
And that's what, and so you have two things before you, and I kind of now take a step back to the streetlights and kind of explain the big picture. Because this is on the futures market, every one of the quotes we get is a day-to-day quote. So we have to respond by tomorrow, or once again now, we have to go back and keep getting another quote. So my request to the board is that we, at the very minimum, we split the direct energy for our streetlights and just lock that rate in. I talked to our consultant with Progressive. If you wish, we can wait for this other option. He'll get us another quote in 2 weeks. You can see what the changes in prices are, but he said he pretty much guaranteed that over time, it's just gonna go back up again. And eventually it'll go back down again, but right now, with it being in the trail, it's gonna see an increase from this point on. So his recommendation was to lock both rates in at this point. But the one I'm requesting right now is the streetlights, because it's a significant savings.
See,
What's the word?
so, let me, yeah, well, let me support what I think the futures guys are saying, right? So if you go back to your chart, if I run a mean through that chart, it clearly in the last 6 years,
It's going down.
it's gone down, down, down. So it's clearly going down. If you're running a mean, which means, I understand what he's thinking, we're probably going to see the bottom of the market here, and it's going to probably level out or go up. So in my opinion, for this kind of savings, I think, in my opinion, I'd absolutely say we do it. And I would even venture to say, because it is commodities, I would be okay with agreeing to that change, switching over and committing to the 2019 myself.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's $35,000. But tell the townspeople we're gonna save 35,
Yeah.
well, you know.
And then that's 40 with both of them.
Right.
When you acted too, right? Right. And,
Oh, go ahead, finish.
no, and then based on the chart, it's gotta be a bottom somewhere.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and it's kind of, yeah, you
I'm
can
a little
gamble.
older than you, but I never remember electric rates that low.
Yeah.
Just a quick question, if you do lock in now, and then this will not take effect until the 2019,
Right.
say next July or August, you know, you can just throw it out there, can you give us a quote? If it's lower, can we go with that? Or it's like, yes, we locked in now, we're good?
Once we lock in, we're locked in.
We're locked in.
Okay, so you can't?
No, I asked that, and that, we can get our rate that we can break, but we're gonna automatically go higher with our.
Okay, that was my question, that was
Can you
my
go
question.
back to the chart?
Sure.
Yeah, Brian, to answer your question, go back to the chart, right? So now we're all gonna be investments, speculators. I mean, that's really what we're doing, right? So if you look at the chart,
It was 664 there.
and if you drew a straight line through here as a median or a mean, right? This thing's just going down, 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 down. Now the question becomes,
It's going to keep going down.
how much lower will it go? Will it level
Stock
out?
market, yes.
Right, so,
And with the economy picking up, it's going to keep going down.
Well, that's what I'm saying, if you're locked in,
You're
you
locked
can
in.
just ride this way with that rate till
exactly.
the fall of 19 when it kicks in, and it's like, oh yeah, we made a good decision, but like I said, if you can opt out of that, and it just gives way down.
See, but Alan just brought up a good point, right? The economy's still heating up, it's still growing, okay? This is where we have to speculate a little bit. Assuming Trump gets reelected, it's gonna continue to heat up. Chances are, these electric prices are not gonna stay this low.
Okay.
The cost of wages is gonna continue to go up. Everything's gonna go up except if they switch to natural gas, which costs hundreds of millions of dollars to do that. So who helps pay for that? The ratepayers. So, you start rolling all that stuff into the equation, and it's like, I don't know that I'm willing to gamble for a half a cent that in 2 years it'll be lower. I think it's proved itself to me that I'm gonna
See,
bite the bullet and do it.
Plus, if you look at the chart, if you look at the fluctuations over on the left-hand side, you're like all over the place. On the right-hand side, the fluctuations are plateauing, so chances are, you're right, it's gonna go back up
It's gonna-
sooner than later.
That's what Trump got.
and that's, no, and just one other note, because I don't know if you can see it from the back there, that Alan and I were just talking about this, is in 16, in May 16 through what looks like November, December of 2016, that's the only time it was lower than where we are now, but it was lower by 0.1 pennies.
Right,
0.1,
yeah. To me, it isn't worth the gamble to try to
right.
say, well, let's wait till 19, or let's wait till the next meeting,
Yeah,
and it
we
starts
say-
climbing, you miss the vote.
Yeah, we can save a penny.
No, we're basically, the way I look at it, you're locking in a rate a year and a half from now for another almost, basically 60 months. You're locking in a rate for 60 months, a 5-year period of time between the time we're talking plus the period you're locking in.
And we're saving $5,000.
Well, the other thing this does is it helps in the futures forecast of projecting the budget.
Right.
for the next 5
Give you
years. At
something.
least you know what
Yes.
the light's gonna be.
You know what the electricity's gonna be. Another thing is, more than likely, in the next 5 years, our energy prices are going to go up. Not even electricity prices, but gas and oil. They're at historic lows, they're gonna go back up again. You have some sort of oil embargo or something kicks in, we're immune to that now for the next 60-plus months
Yep.
with what's being proposed.
So do you need a motion for that?
I would look for a motion to accept the 2 progressive proposals and authorize the township staff to engage in the contract.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second same.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay. Appointment of Ed McAllen's.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is just for informational purposes. I've mentioned him in my manager's report, I just wanted to formally get it on new business. I did hear suggestions from both of you two about wanting to get to know him better. Mr. Chair, I do like your suggestion, and like we talked about, that I think it would be good going forward that the board actually interviews appointees. And I would recommend that you actually get to know Mr. Almus by actually interviewing him. I did spend an hour and a half with him over lunch on my own personal interview, but I think it'd be something of value for the supervisors actually conducting interviews, especially with somebody that they're not familiar with. So if the board's okay with that, then I'll set up an interview with him for you guys.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, very good idea.
Can you say a little bit about where he is and what he does or something like that?
He is the vice chair of the Stony Point Park Executive Working Group. So that is how he has gotten himself associated with the Park and Rec. Just like most of the members now on that Park and Rec all basically came from that group. So that is his background. He has a desire actually in participating in development of a park master plan. So that is his desire, what he wants to do in the Park and Rec board.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Good suggestion.
And his occupation?
Actually, we didn't talk about his occupation, so I'm not sure what his occupation is.
Okay.
Pension contract with Univest, discussion.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is just to make everybody aware that we had our kickoff meeting Monday with Univest. Spent about an hour and a half with them, myself and Liz. We did get contracts, which I forwarded to the board and to the pension working group, as well as to our solicitor. So Mike Miller right now is reviewing the legal language for it. TD Ameritrade's contract, just to be blunt, if we add it, we don't utilize TD Ameritrade. That's one of those take it or leave it type arrangements, and basically that's just a trading platform. The Univest agreement is roughly 4 pages, which is a lot different from the principal agreement, which was a book at this point. The one thing to take away from, let me just look here in the agenda, there's one thing I pointed out in particular I really liked about that. actually, I don't have that, it's not highlighted, but the one thing in there that Univest put in there, which we do not have in the current principal agreement, is a 30-day written notice where we can terminate our agreement with Univest and walk away penalty-free. So it's a much thinner contract, but with that clause written in, I feel very comfortable with this contract because they are basically standing by the product. If we're not satisfied with the product, we can walk away without any consequences, which is something that we can't do right now with principal without issues. So
It shows their level of confidence.
that means they have to keep us happy in order to keep us retained at this point. So I think it's a good contract. We'll see what Mike Miller says. Univest is open to making changes to their part of the contract. The only thing they request is that we really think twice before we make any changes to the TD Ameritrade part of the contract, the trading platform, because that would invalidate the agreement with TD Ameritrade. So we got that in review, but Mike Miller's reviewing both the TD Ameritrade as well as the Univest contract. It's my goal to have this before you for recommendation of approval at the next board meeting at this point, assuming that there are no Mike Miller issues at this point. I've heard no comments from the pension working group, so I'm assuming that they are okay with what's submitted to them at this point.
Thank you. Municipal bid results for the 213 Taurus.
Okay. Well, we are now in round 3 of bidding out the cars at this point. As you know, the first time we didn't hit our minimum threshold. The second time, we had a bidder who decided to not show up after promising a couple times he was coming to the township building to pick it up. So municipal bid barred that person from ever bidding again on municipal bid. So per the way our bid was advertised, we relisted for a third time. And this time around, or last time around for our bid, it was $2,700 and the guy didn't show up. This time around, we came in at $3,400 and hopefully this person actually does show up with a check.
He called me today,
Okay.
and I said, he was very excited about winning the auction or bid. I said, you need to call upstairs. He mentioned something that he works during the week and was wondering if he could pick it up on Saturday. If B&E Notary is open, which I'm assuming they are on Saturday, I'd be more than willing to set up a time with him on a Saturday to swing by there and sign the paperwork. And you can give it to me, nobody has to be here, and I can give him a key and he can be on his way.
Except for 35, you'll do that, right?
Yeah, really.
So we kind of gone full circle.
Thanks for doing that.
We had set municipal bid. We had set municipal bids, municipal reserve for this bid, what, $3,500.
And now we're back to
And now we're back to $3,400. So we've come full circle at this point.
You knew what we were doing, eh?
Yeah, we're close.
I'm sorry, Chief, I've got to ask, you really want to meet a guy on a Saturday whose last name is Newcomer?
It'll be all right.
Okay.
Scott, did municipal waive the first two?
The first one, we didn't hit the reserve that we had put in there, so that was kind of a mistake on our end. We learned after that first one that we can look at the bids in an hour or two before drop that reserve if we need to. So a lesson learned on our part with how municipal bid works. The second one, we dropped the reserve down to $2,500 and it came in at $2,700. And then there was about a 2-week period of time where we were communicating with the person who never showed up. That kept saying he's coming, he's got the check in hand, he wouldn't show up, and we contacted him, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be coming again, he wouldn't show up. And so we had written in there that, in our bid, that if the bid was rejected or not accepted, that would be reposted. So we talked to municipal bid, said this guy's unresponsive. The municipal bid did a threat email to them and communicate with them that if you don't accept the bid, you're going to be barred from ever using municipal bid again. That didn't work. We relisted, here we are.
So we had to pay for the first 2 times?
No, we don't pay.
We don't
They pay.
pay. Municipal pay, you don't pay. The guy don't
Okay,
pay.
this is all free for us. They pay on their end.
They pay us.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
If they had a posting fee or anything like that?
No, so, yeah, so this it's just a matter of delay of gaming. I mean,
Okay.
We had the other two vehicles been gone now for almost a month and a half, and we're
Yeah.
still stuck with this one vehicle.
I watched it the other night a little bit.
Yeah.
And just to give you the details, it's kind of interesting. They had 707 views on that vehicle, 18 bids. 707 views.
And the person this one's picking up from New Jersey. The one that bailed on us was Texas.
You couldn't get a flight up.
That's stuck in the border, huh?
Yeah. That wall kept him out.
You couldn't find his green card.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I missed one, investment of township funds and interest-bearing accounts.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I don't have anything in your meeting packets, but I did share with you just some rates that we had gotten from three banks, and I just want to get some guidance from the board whether we are authorized as township staff to reach out to, in this case, the Univest Bank, because they gave the best rates that the banks we reached out to, and present back to the board at our next meeting options for our funds to put into higher yielding interest-bearing accounts. Right now, everything's in checking accounts, really bad rates. We can get anywhere from a 1.5% to almost 3% right now, thanks to the rate increases the Fed has been doing now, the rates have gone up. And I'd just like some flexibility. What I'm looking at doing in particular, just my background, is taking some of our funds that are not going to move, which would be like the UGI Get Gas, that's set for 10 years. So I'd like to get that into either a CD or possibly something even better at this point. So we can even talk to our pension provider with Univest Municipal about possibly putting it into some sort of almost like an OPEB fund where you get like a 3 or 4 or 5% rate of return on that and some conservative investment. Act 209 fees, capital reserve, putting that into a money market account, which we can get about 1.75%. So it's not quite getting what inflation is, but at least it's better than 0.25% that you're checking right now.
Yeah.
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 And they, all these, the money markets would be immediately liquid. That's a nice thing.
Absolutely.
The CDs, which we get a little bit better rate, we have to be a little bit more selective as to which funds get put into a CD. Yeah, so these, like some of our Act 209 monies that are not planning to be spent could actually be put into the CD. We get a better rate of return, but some of our Act 209 money would need to stay in the money market account.
Yeah, I think Scott should definitely start looking.
You can look at it.
Thank you. That's all I need.
Okay, Wabash Road, one-day road closure.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is actually, I do need action on this one too. This, I had emailed you the other day that we got a request from the contractor for Wabash Landing that they are struggling with a manhole that they got to put into Wabash Road, and they need to put some trench boxes up, and they need to go deep, and they need to blast, they need to close the road. So what they're looking to do is they requested that they close the road on Monday, weather dependent. So that's gonna be my request, is the permission to do a one-day closure, but not to specify Monday. Because with the weather we've been dealing with right now, they're not gonna dig a deep trench if we're gonna have rain like what we're having today. I was concerned at first with what they were proposing, because we've got 4 seasons right there. In fact, I threw a little cold water on what they were proposing, so they came back and explained that their manhole, the location they're working on, is just beyond 4 Seasons truck entrance. So 4 Seasons will still be able to come in, truck in and out. It will impact the residents basically beyond 4 Seasons truck entrance. Yeah. So with it being a one-day closure, I told them they can either do a detour or do flagging. I said my preference would be to flag, because people, what will happen if you do it for a one-day detour, whenever you put a detour up, it's guaranteed the first couple of days, people will test the detour out because they don't believe the road's actually closed. So if we do a one-day detour sign, you're going to have everybody drive up to the road closed and then turn, do the U-turns back around. It's better for us to have flagmen on both approaches of Wabash and just flag people off versus having people drive up to the road closed sign and turn back around, which is what would happen. So my recommendation, when I talk with them tomorrow, I'm going to meet with them at 9:30 tomorrow on site, would be for them to have flagmen on both approaches of Wabash, so 272 on the other end. But my motion is just permission for the closure of Wabash Road for one day as discussed.
That would be 272 and Stevens
Yeah.
between those two. Well, this past Monday, July 30th, I was going on Stevens Road, and I usually do go on Wabash if I'm going to anybody in your area, Doug. I have some friends that are on that road. And they did have a detour up, and they had a flag man. And that was a little before 12 noon. And at 3:30, when my husband came back from the fire company, he said, oh, they have a detour up at Wabash. I said, that's been up since noon, and that's okay. So I don't know what it was beyond Stevens, where the other part was, because I didn't come back on 272, because I figured Wabash is closed. So they already have experience with how to do
Well, but
that.
that was not, that closure was not the Wabash lane closure, that was a utility closure, so.
For Wabash.
Yeah.
'Cause
It was Wabash related, but that was not.
Yeah, that road's actually very horrible right now.
Yeah.
They need to do something about it, period, but
I know, I didn't have that, I've seen it.
But that mine, I told them I would meet them out tomorrow at the manhole location, and I just wanted to get that motion.
I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried, thank you. Managers report.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll try to make this brief. I've always started off with mortgage share from every single one of my managers' reports, so I just wanted to say it's not complete.
Complete?
After a year and a half. On the recreation board side, I have reviewed the letter associate's proposal. It's acceptable on my end. I'm forwarding it to the group tomorrow for their review. I anticipate that we will get a meeting set up the week of August 13th with the Stony Point Executive Group to formally, for them to make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, and then that proposal will come to the board for board's consideration.
Good.
On the pool, I have no updates on my end. The pension, I already updated the pension a moment ago. Key meetings that occurred, there was a meeting with Dentech on the 23rd, myself and Tony attended that. And you're looking at some future expansions at that location. They're expanding operations. I don't know if you want to go into a little more detail there, Tony, or?
Well, just to add to what Scott said, Dentech, as we all know, moved into the area several years ago, and they've been steadily growing ever since. Put tremendous amount of money into the existing Four Seasons property, and they continue to look forward. Hiring, well, in this, it's a two-phase type renovation. They're talking about increasing square footage for the production floor and also office space. Okay? Two additions to the building in similar location, but they've got plenty of parking for any additional square footage. They should be in good shape. We like having them. Like I said, when they moved in, correct me, the numbers aren't exact. I believe when they first moved in, they had roughly 60 employees. They're at 100 employees on this day.
And they're still advertising.
Still advertising more, it's tough to find good people, but they fill these niches, and they're very happy to be here. And they've already accepted, they'll be at the Business Leaders Forum, both the CEO and the CFO.
I talked about Reamstown. We did have the Cocalico's leaders meeting the other day. We did have a meeting with the Enterprise Stone and Line to discuss the MS4 responsibilities for their Martin Quarry. We're reevaluating some of the street sweeping that they're doing. Kind of requesting them to expand it a little bit beyond what they're currently doing at this point. There is going to be some coordination between High and New Enterprise. And we might help facilitate some of that to it on the street sweeping side. And there's also a swale that High is supposed to maintain that is not quite working with the vertical paving part of their site that is causing us some extensive water to flow across the vertical paving site onto Kurtz Road and putting a lot of stone on there. And that swale was operational, we didn't have that situation. So we told New Enterprise that we would work with them. That swale has already been flagged by Brent Lee with High, and we're just going to do another follow-up visit with High to pass on what their neighbors requesting. And it does, like I said, it impacts Kurtz Road. Normally we don't involve ourselves between two property owners, especially at the, we don't try to, but in this situation, what one property owner is doing is impacting Kurt's Road directly. So there's some look at the culvert driveway down at the bottom end. There's a culvert down there that we're looking at. And when I was out there with Tony knows it's always bad to have an engineer out on a roadway walk about because there's something that's going to pop up. So I did, when I was looking at the Kurt's Road culvert, I did then contact the two and ask them to do an inspection of that culvert. And I do think I will be putting in, we do have some funds I could move around in our public works to do a guide rail project there this fall, just from a safety perspective. As I'm watching the dump trucks cross that culvert and there's nothing more than a simple 2-inch diameter piping there. There's really nothing. All that will do is mark where a vehicle goes off the road. It doesn't really accomplish anything. So from a liability perspective, we're going to get her 2 out there in the month of August, and then we're going to put some guide rail up around that culvert.
Honestly, with the amount of traffic on that road, I'm surprised that guardrail, that 2-inch pipe is still there.
It's good steel.
Good steel.
Yeah, it's good galvanized steel,
Here's made the US.
And then yesterday we had a meeting, myself and Brent Lee with Landmark, and we looked at the 3 retention basins we're going to be taking over in a little bit and having to start maintaining. For upcoming things, 2 key things. 1925, I will be meeting with the Realtor on August 13th. I do not know what that person is potentially looking to offer or what they're potentially looking to do with that site. The Realtor has been very non-forthcoming with information other than trying to set the meeting up. And I will be also meeting that week with Landmark, as I discussed, to talk about the fee in lieu of sidewalk for us to install a future trail. And so with that, that's my report.
Thank you.
Quick question, Scott. Great to see Morganshire getting ahead. Heather Woods is finally taking. Just noticed that Carriage Hill is having a public sale to get rid of the excess lots. Was wondering how financial responsibilities, if that thing is where it should be, or if we're gonna have some problems down the road if they do sell it, or?
No, if, we've actually been in a lot of discussions with that owner, and that's probably the best thing that could happen right now from the township perspective is the property actually sells. With the paving that occurred at that location, our liability went away at that point.
So there is no more letter of credits, there's?
We have some securities for some minor items, but the major item was the paving, and we did not at that time have enough security to cover it if we had to take over the paving. A sale of that property would be a nice way to jumpstart that development again at this point, and something that myself and Mr. Luongo are trying to encourage that owner to do for a while. We've met with a number of prospective developers that were looking at taking over that property. We do have a clear list as to what would be a responsibility of the developer that takes over, so we do know what they are responsible for. And there's a couple things that when a new developer takes over, that we will probably be making some recommendations that the new developer does not do, given how we've changed the way we approach land development over the last 15 years. Obviously, it's a lot different what we're doing now than what we were doing 15 years ago.
Was that auctioneer in contact with the office there, or you never heard anything, or?
I'm not sure. It sounds like the owner's grandsons and next generation are kind of taking a little bit more control of that situation at this point. The last couple meetings, there was multi-generational.
I'm just saying, when they go ahead to that auction and start reading the terms, you know, if they're gonna be forthcoming with.
The list is very clearly prepared. I can't force the owner to.
Understood. I just, you know.
But if a new owner were to come by and say, I didn't know about this, we have the documents to show.
Okay.
At this point, it's very clear what the main responsibilities are for that property.
Full disclosure.
Financially.
You know how things go.
Well, I know.
They said, he said, they,
Yeah,
you know.
I thought they
yeah.
said.
Well, there we go
Yeah,
again.
we're documented that we are.
It is
supposed to-
documented.
We're documented, so.
Okay,
And just to add to what Scott said, I had a visit from the owner along with his auctioneer in my office last week
okay.
to get a full idea of exactly what needs to be done. And I told them straightforward, don't promise what you don't understand. There are items on phases 3 and 4 that need to be addressed, and any purchaser has to do his due diligence, come into the township, we'll be happy to sit down with him and explain the full enchilada. And they both agreed. He's gonna keep it brief and say, on that posting, Bill Lay has talked to the township about what needs to be done. So we're covered.
Okay,
Okay, yeah,
Thank you.
that happened last week.
okay.
Okay, public comment for non-agenda item only.
So, Mr. Fry, how about you,
Stevens first. Hold on,
Okay,
Jeff.
excuse me.
It's Steve.
Sorry. Thank you. This actual question is for the chief. Last week, the police were out again at the rental property at 10 Stevens Road. This is the second time in 2 weeks. This time it was an unmarked car, so they're becoming more and more discreet. And the police officers were flashing their flashlights at the second floor, like they were waiting, they were banging on the door like they were waiting for something.
I think it might have been a warrant service.
Can you,
I think it was, they were actually trying to serve a warrant, if I'm not mistaken.
because the woman did come out after about 10 minutes.
I'm not sure, I'm not exactly sure who they were looking for, but I think that was, I believe that's what it was. Off the calls from last week, I don't remember exactly, but I know they were trying at one point to serve on someone they thought was living there.
Okay.
So, again, as the ordinance go through, and I was just at a Denver Borough meeting the other night, and they didn't have anything come up on that part of it, but I was reminded of what you brought, and I think that will very much help us, because if we see a problem property, we can then turn it over to Tony or whoever, and then just move it forward.
Yeah.
So I understand your pain, I do,
Sure.
but we want to,
I just wasn't sure if I needed to get out my Teflon vest or.
no, I don't think it was to that extent, not bad.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're all right.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Right.
Donation. Yeah. It's a good one.
He'll be number one. We're gonna have it.
Mr. Fry, pool manager's report.
So far, except for last week and this week, attendance has been up, in my opinion, from last year. Since we did the online registration, I don't have a handle on that this time. By the end of the next month, I'll know for sure.
I think we had 182 patrons come from online registration.
So then that's
Roughly, I look at
what,
least, because she actually had those exact numbers, but it was a 180 range.
and that's what we had last year.
Right, that was just online, and there were some pool memberships that were bought at the pool.
There are a couple of the schools, not many, but a couple, yeah.
How's the diving board making out?
6 weeks later, we have a good diving board. You couldn't buy from the manufacturer, you had to go through a supplier. Well, that took forever. 4 weeks we got the diving board after they found it. It was lost in FedEx Express in New Jersey. We got it in. The skid that it was on was missing, and somebody hit it with the forks of a tow motor and cracked it.
And you always blame the New Jersey.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, Marcus took it.
no, I wasn't there, but anyway, so I contacted the manufacturer. Within a week, I had a replacement board that came in with Old Dominion trucking, and it was on the skid, in perfect condition, and we have a good diving board now, so we're set.
So you've tested it out then?
No, I had one of the lifeguards into that.
Okay. Is there been any lifeguard issues, insubordination, anything like that?
Not really, no, they're on vacation a lot. That's a personal, Yeah, but no, we had 20 lifeguards, and they're good kids, but they're millennials.
Everything going well at the snack bar?
Yes. The only complaint I had, a man wanted a hot dog one day, and the young man in there didn't know how to make a hot dog supposedly, but that was corrected the same day. Because I had a hot dog about a half an hour later, and I forgot who the guy was, so I ate it.
And you're still alive.
I'm still alive.
Steve ate the proceeds.
I paid for it.
Yeah, you ate the profit.
You know, I went and bought a hot dog, if I remember, I thought, the gentleman then, I thought he left, so then I figured, oh, I'll just eat it.
In your opinion, has the operator had a profitable year thus far, or?
Yeah, you better talk to her, I don't think so. If it's,
Too many rainy days?
too many rainy days, and she usually has two personnel in there. But she doesn't, it's a lot better.
We are meeting with her tomorrow to see if there's some ways that we help her improve her bottom line a little bit.
One of the things you might want to think about is, again, I think people would tend to stay a lot longer and actually go buy more snacks and things if we actually had Wi-Fi there.
The guards above that.
Well, they shouldn't have the phones on the,
That's the problem.
Yeah.
but
Gotta watch it like a hawk.
Or we're gonna be meeting with her tomorrow too, to kind of encourage her to go down to one person at certain times of the day. I mean, I admire that she does two-person staffing, that's certainly a big improvement over the last year.
Well, the plan is a big improvement.
Right. But I mean, just from a sheer volume of people that utilize it, to justify 2 employees,
Yeah.
that's kind of tough. And so we're gonna talk to see what options might be
Yeah.
available, because she has done a good job, and we hate to go 1 year and then have to start looking again for somebody else, because she said I can't make numbers work here.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Scott. Last time I was over, I ordered a couple things and they looked at each other like, well, who's gonna do this? You know, one of you guys get moving here, right?
A lot of our clientele are young people with kids, small kids. So a lot of families come to that pool. And so they bring snacks for their children, not so much buying out a snack pool. That's some of the problem. But
How's the fence been holding up?
didn't fall down yet.
Good deal. Good deal. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Adjourn, thank you, everybody. Darn it, it's not 11 o'clock.
Yeah. Can't go home now.
I can't go home now, I was gonna where you at? Oh, we? You guys are gonna sell 30 stuff.
I didn't tell her that.
Then there's the regular ones. They're up at 6.
Wanted to thank her.
Night,
Appreciate
so-
it.